Hi, what I have in front of me here is a 3G 4-camera DVR kit that will allow for a remote viewing of this DVR in a situation where we don't have local broadband access via a fixed line system. So basically what we've done is we've pulled together 3 essential parts to create a kit. We've pulled together a professional DVR which we've pre-configured to work with a 3G dongle. We have a 3D dongle that will take a 3 SIM card. And we also have an aerial here, which is a boosting aerial to support the 3G signal. So what we can do here is, if we wanted to have a very remote setting, say something like a shed that's a long distance from somewhere else, and we want to set up a number of cameras there but be able to view it remotely, what can happen is we can take an app that we covered in the separate video, we install it on our iPhone, it's pre-configured to work with this particular DVR and the settings we've put in it, and it'll allow the viewing via the SIM card that we'll insert in here. It's a very, very simple system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of the component parts, and at the end I'm going to give a general talk about possible add-on products that go with this, and a few of the reasons why we actually went, we'll say, with the 3D dongle over the 3 one instead of possible other guides. Okay, so let's start with the DVR here. It's a professional DVR. It's from X-Vision, this particular model here. And what we have is we have a 12 volt, 3.3 amp power unit. We have a remote control, and we have batteries with it. And then we have a means here via SATA cable and railings of mounting an internal hard drive in it. And then we have the DVR itself, which is quite a good professional DVR. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come around to the front here. Now, not all DVRs can be configured to work with this setup. That's why we've gone with this particular one. So what we have in the front is the ability to add on a USB port. We have selection up and down, left and right, and then various ways of accessing the menu, controlling the PTZ, etc., and bringing it up. Okay. If we rotate it around, we'll see that we have a VGA output which we could use in the local area if we were connecting a monitor onto it. We have a total of 4 video inputs here, so up to 4 cameras can be supported. We have outputs here as well, BNC outputs, and we have audio outputs as well. And we have a total of 4 audio inputs, so each of the cameras can be supported in this manner. We have an RS485 here, which means we can come along, we can actually support it for, we'll say, PTZ control, so be a pan tilt zoom camera. We can actually adjust it from our phone, contact the DVR via this, and that will allow us to actually control the camera and spin it. What we can do here as well then is we have alarm settings here, so it can mean that if there's an alarm there, you can send a trigger that will notify us that something has happened. Okay. We have a LAN connection here where we could configure it onto a normal network, and we have a USB port here again, and it's via one of these USB ports will actually be coming along and adding on the 3 dongle onto it, and we have the 12 volt power supply here as well. Okay, so that pretty well explains that. What I might do here is I'm just going to actually, I'll actually go back into the seated position here, and we'll just come along next. I'll just push this out of the way slightly, and we'll look at the 3G dongle. So let's just look here. We just pull the cap off, and we can see in here, this is exactly how it would work. Inside here, there's a slot for inserting a 3 SIM card into it. So we can insert the SIM card in, and then we just insert it back in here. And what we have then is, this is a means of adding the SIM card directly in. Okay, so what we can do at this point in time is either on the front or the back USB port. I'll just, for ease of purpose here, ease of demonstration, I'll just show it here. We can insert it directly like that. But the reality is, we'll say, that possibly that won't be sufficient in terms of, unless we have very good 3G coverage in the area, we want to maximize our chances of having good 3G coverage. So we can do that using the following. So I'm just going to remove this, so you can just imagine, we'll say, this is inserted in the back of it. But we'll come along here, and we actually include an adapter cable with this. So what I'm going to try to do is, I'm just going to try to raise this up here if I can. Just a little rubber bung here. So I'm in here now, and you can see this little insert here. So what we do is, we come along and we insert this in here. So this is a step-up connector, and on the far end, we can come along and we can connect on to one of these 2 cables. We have a 2 meter cable, and we've also included a 5 meter cable. So this will actually let us come along, and what this will allow us to add on an aerial onto it, a 3G aerial, which will boost the signal that's been fed down into the 3G signal here. So the 3G signal may be sufficient, but it may not, and in most cases it will not be sufficient. So what we do is we come along, this aerial can be mounted outside, and it's a passive aerial, so it doesn't need its own power supply. And what we have here is, we have simply on the far end of the cable, we'd simply screw this in. So if you can imagine it here, I'll just give a quick demonstration. We just screw it in directly onto the end of the cable there. So that's why we've actually threaded it there accidentally. So in terms of the accessories that it gives for mounting this that comes in the kit, there's two ways of doing it. The simplest way of mounting it is something like this, where we'd actually bolt this on onto the back of the aerial, and we'd bolt the next element on to a wall. And then that means what we can do is we can simply come along and we can attach it on like this, and using the bolts in the kit, we can have this mounted onto the wall, and it gives a certain level of rotation here. So that's one way of doing it. And the other way is if we came along and we actually had a bracket like this, which is actually bolted straight through, and we had a pole, and we could just mount it directly on, put the screws straight through, and we could just mount it directly onto a pole, and that'd be it. So we have a bag of nuts and bolts here. So you can see the general setup on it is extremely straightforward and logical. DVR, 3G, boosts the signal coming in, that's it. And then you have your iPhone, for instance, and you have the app, and you just follow the guide here. But what we're doing is, by pre-configuring it, we'll have set it up on a URL where you can come along, log in, and there'll be an access code that will let you go directly in. So what do you do when you get the system? The first thing is to come along and just put in the 3G SIM card directly into it. So it's 3 SIM in this particular case. And the reason we'll say what that does is it just buys you, we'll say, a month's worth. You know, you might have a cost in there, maybe 15 euros or something. I'm not exactly sure the figures on it. And what that means is, depending on how you want to pay, you can pay as you go, or you can go into a contract basis where you just have this set up permanently. And just when you need to log in, then you're able to log in, view the camera, or what you could do is you could actually spin the PTZs and things like that. So what are the possible accessories that go beyond this? Well, you can come along and you can actually have a hard drive built in here. So you can have something like a 500 gig or maybe a 1 terabyte hard drive, and you could have that and be mounted in it. Another associated product that we have with this is we just have a small bracket which you could use to actually have it mounted directly onto a wall. And what you could do is you could use this if you knew you didn't have a bracket and you wanted to use one that would just sort of lift it up here. So that's just listed as an associated product with it. The other thing I could say is there's an option there, we'll say, in terms of the associated product lists the number of cameras you could buy with it. But you could go along, and something that would be very popular with this would be something like this. 10 zoom PTZ camera, where you can actually come along, and what you're going to say is, have this set up in a remote location. When I need to log in, what I'm going to do is I'll just be able to grab control of this, and I'll be able to spin and rotate it and view it exactly where, we'll say, an alarm has triggered, something like that, and have a look on it in that way. And that's one of the options that we're listing with this. I'll just put this back down out of the way. The reason that we went with the 3 as a provider for the SIM card is simply because the other networks don't give the flexibility to be able to have a data system like this, where you can just come along and have such flexibility in terms of pay as you go, or for the go into a contract basis on. So for that reason, both for demonstration and later in the videos, etc., just gives a great overview. But I think this sits really nicely because it's a very, very common problem that people are emailing us on, where they want to come along, set up a DVR, have a recording and things like that, but they want to be notified if there's an issue. We'll say there might be a sensor go off, we'll say alarm has been triggered, something like that. And what they want to be able to do then is they want to be able to, from their iPhone, log directly in. And a constant problem that people have is that they don't have broadband in their local location in terms of a fixed line. And they don't really want to pay for a fixed line thing, where it's a very rare thing that they need to do. So they don't want the setup costs or the ongoing costs, where this offers a very economical solution to it, because you probably won't be doing huge levels of viewing on this, only certain levels of it. And what you can do is you can just log in when you need to via the iPhone. So this single sort of kit solution, I think this, with the accessories and with the associated products that go with it, gives a lot of flexibility and gives a very, very modular solution to a very common problem. So that's it anyway, an overview of the 4-channel 3G DVR setup.